Let's go deeper tonight and bring in Democratic Congresswoman Sheila Jackson-Lee. She's a senior member of the Homeland Security Committee in the House. Congresswoman, thank you for being here. You represent Texas. You have for decades, the Houston area. But on the border in Del Rio, the pictures coming in, and it's agents on horses, and whether it's reins or whips, depends on who you ask. They've upset a lot of people. We know that. And you said, quote, "These are cruel, inhumane human rights abuses and a violation of domestic and international law." You're a congresswoman. You're a lawyer. What should be done?
Well, first of all, we know that we have a very untenable rule that was given to the administration by the Trump administration, which is Title 42, which is utilized for direct, without ceasing deportation, without relief, if you will. So that is something that the Biden administration is straddled with, even with their own personal or their own overall viewpoint of being humanitarian in this effort. So what needs to be done is, one, the narrative needs to be further explained, and that is that the border, as has been said, is not open, but people are desperate. In particular, the Haitian migrants, many of whom have not been to Haiti in a decade, fled the earthquake in 2010, now stateless because of various crises in the countries that they were in. They fled to the border. Information that was given suggested that there was an opportunity for freedom, for the ability to enter the United States. What does not need to happen, and I think the administration knows that, and I'm very glad to say that the Secretary of Homeland Security will be investigating the actions that we saw with those on horses interacting with Haitian migrants, is we need to have a humanitarian narrative that needs access to asylum, access to the immigration options as it relates to sponsors and families that other migrants have had. But we do not need to show or emphasize the Title 42 deportation, where it looks as if Haitian migrants are being deported more than anyone else, and that's what we want to stop.
Yeah, the asylum system, the refugee system, I know that Congress has been debating that for so long. Let's stick with border security, though, if we could. Only 29% of voters in Texas, as I just said, approve of President Biden's handling of the border. So if guns are off the table, if non-lethal methods like horses and reins are off the table, what is an acceptable way to enforce the law to protect the border? Because, as you say, it's not supposed to be an open border.
Well, as you well know, the reason why that percentage may seem to be low is because we've had a governor that wants to use immigration as his ticket to re-election. He doesn't want to use the freeze. He doesn't want to use his very poor COVID numbers. Texas going over 1 million cases. Huge numbers of people died in our state. But here's what we can do. We can use the resources of the Department of Homeland Security to send down as many extra personnel to process these migrants. We can have these migrants placed in either the sponsor's custody, if you will, or other sites while they access the legal immigration system. They may ultimately be ruled that they have to leave the country. We understand that, but show an orderliness of it. Get them moved away from the border as quickly as possible. I've suggested to use the the non-governmental organization network. These NGOs are ready to help these migrants for them not to be a dependent on the United States. They're all ready to do so. Use that, use the extra personnel to process them, and then proceed with adding more judges to the immigration court system, and just have them go through the legal system. Show the world that we have a system that is not broken, that we have a system that works, that we do recognize how America is perceived as a home of freedom and opportunity, but we also have to abide by laws. But we're a nation of immigrants. Process them, use our NGOs, use the courts, and then move them orderly from the border. That's what we need to do so that they're not overwhelming the border community.
When it comes to the Biden administration, it's raising the refugee cap to 125,000 next year. The fiscal year begins in a week, I believe. Does it feel weird to you that on one hand the president wants to welcome more refugees, but on the other hand simultaneously deporting people who want to become refugees?
Well, I think it speaks to his heart and his commitment. I believe what the president is doing is really the approach that the president wants the United States to engage in. These migrants, albeit not using that as an excuse, came quickly to the border, and I think we need to be better prepared. There was knowledge that they might be coming, but they moved quickly, and that's why you saw this huge surge under the bridge. We didn't get staff down there soon enough. The border communities were overwhelmed. I think we're getting an understanding of how best to address this. We need to dispatch as quickly as possible our immigration infrastructure to the border. Sometimes you call it SOS. We need to utilize FEMA, which is good in emergency circumstances, to organize the persons. And then we need to be able to build up the immigration court system to work through this process while these individuals may be with their family members or in sites around the nation. This is a big country. We can absorb 125,000 refugees. We can absorb the number of Afghan allies that have come, and we can absorb them constructively while we add to the president's transformational government with some of the legislation we're working on. Let's show the world what being a country that understands the humanity of humanity, if you will. Let's try to ensure that these individuals are treated fairly. The one thing that we have determined, that the Haitian families are not a threat to the United States. They're not here to do us harm. They're not terrorists. And that means they come as hardworking people, desperate to make their lives better. Let's turn it to our advantage by using the legal system we have and to be prepared at the border. Let's not have a surge come and not have the right personnel there to provide extra assistance to those so that we don't have to use tactics that look harsh and discriminatory like they looked with the Haitian migrants. Let's not do that. Let's treat them with dignity.
Yes. From Border Patrol, DHS, to judges. Sheila Jackson Lee, Congresswoman of Texas, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.